destroyed. At this hour, live Doppler radar shows the killer storm remains strong as it moves westward over the eastern Gulf of Mexico. Good evening, I'm Gail Sierens, and thank you for joining us tonight. When Hurricane Andrew slammed ashore before dawn, it was packing winds of 140 miles per hour. The Category 4 hurricane is the worst to hit Miami since 1926. Bob Height stayed up with many of us all night tracking the storm. He joins us now from our NewsWatch 8 Storm Center. Bob?
Thank you, Gail. You'll remember that last week when Andrew was upgraded to a tropical storm way out in the Atlantic, we were commenting on how comparatively few storms there have been this season. Of course, Andrew would soon make up for that here in Florida. But the first unfortunate landmass, the Bahamas, was mere fodder for this ferocious phenomenon. Andrew didn't break stride as it marched over these low-lying islands, many of them lower than the waves, riding the crest of the storm surge that the hurricane was shoving along before it. While Andrew was bludgeoning the Bahama banks, his emissaries of rain, wind, and waves arrived along Florida's southeast coast in mid-evening. Having heard the reports of death and destruction in the island nation just off our shores, the first hint of the storm here seemed contradictory, but of course it would soon be catastrophically convincing. By 3 a.m., there were no more live shots from the shore. Everyone, including members of the media who had not evacuated, were seeking shelter for their very lives. Our last images from the scene, the reporters and meteorologists at our sister station in WTBJ in Miami huddled together in a storeroom somewhere in the bowels of their old building, while outside Andrew wrought the kind of carnage that is hard to conceive even as we see the footage now with our own eyes. On the west coast, where Andrew would exit our state near Naples, the first sense of the storm came in the form of falling rain and light winds at about 7:30 this morning. By 9, residents could feel the weather was exceeding their experience, with winds gusting to 45, stinging rain, and the conditions ever increasing. They could feel the storm gaining velocity steadily. It accelerated throughout the morning, and by noon, 100-mile-an-hour winds were slashing through the streets of Naples, flinging withering sheets of rain. These conditions sustained for at least 3 hours before they began to abate at all. Of course, we'll be bringing you specific reports from these areas as this news hour continues. Gail?
All right, Bob, thank you for that recap. Eagle 8 pilot Judd Chapin took NewsWatch 8's chopper up for a first-hand exclusive look at the devastation left in the wake of Hurricane Andrew. And Judd joins us now with some pictures that really, it's seeing is believing. It's hard to believe it did this.
When you look at it, Gail, it's even with your eye, you just can't believe it. It's just beyond comprehension. And you fly over this stuff and you look at it and it's just, it's almost beyond words. But if you look at the pictures, this is an area right here. I believe this is in the Howard area, south of Kendall Boulevard. This was a mobile home residential area, and there was just nothing left standing. Every single building just about was gone. We went this way, saw this kind of destruction for mile upon mile. This was a research vessel that had been put into this canal for safekeeping. Obviously, it didn't stay there. A sailboat inside of a house. This was on the area near the Kings Bay Yacht Club, just off of Cutler Road. Tremendous damage all over the area. Thousands of people are probably homeless tonight when they get to it, when they look at it.
And they're not going to believe their eyes. In fact, we're probably seeing a great deal of this before they even have the opportunity to. Hard to imagine, isn't it? Have you ever seen anything like it, Judd?
Nothing like this. Hugo was bad, but it was nothing like this. That last shot was the airport. The Tamiami airport is completely destroyed. There's not a single structure left standing.
All right, Judd. Thank you.
I'll never forget the images from Hugo. I was shocked when Judd told me what he saw today was worse than Hugo.
Thank you.
Lives quickly change when natural disasters such as Andrew strike. NewsWatch 8's Rob North is in Miami at one of the hardest hit areas. Rob, these folks had more, I'm afraid, than Andrew to deal with. There were looters as well.
That's absolutely right. Now, Homestead is about the hardest hit community in South Florida. People died there. There were many injuries, and it's hard for me to explain what it's like there. I'll just say it's a complete mess.
We got your dollies. We got your dollies. Your dollies are all right. Grandma's got to clean them up. Okay.
3-year-old Jessica cried in her great-grandmother's arms today. Jessica lost her toys in the hurricane. Great-grandmother Florence lost her home.
I'm crying. This is what we have. Our home. We have nothing now. My husband can't start all over again.
But Homestead lost more than just houses and trailers. Most of the businesses here were also destroyed. Hurricane Andrew tore this community apart. What Andrew left, the looters carried away. They were emptying a shoe store when police drove by.
Drop what you got in your hands.
Eventually, the cops ran out of patience and sent for a SWAT team.
Shotgun shells on the front seat.
But many Homestead businesses didn't wait for the looters. Gun shop owner Margell Connors salvaged what he could from the ruins of his store.
This business is history for a couple of years at least.
But the real tragedy of Homestead is homelessness. Jerry Rosecrans found nothing but rubble when she returned to her trailer in Homestead this afternoon. I rescued a picture of her granddaughter, but Jerry's prize organ is a wreck.
That's all we had, so this is it. I'm hysterical inside, you know what I'm saying?
Homestead will rebuild, but it's not going to take days and it's not going to take weeks. It's going to take a long, long time to put that small community back together, Bob.
Rob, Judd said from the air it looked like the damage was worse than he recalls from Hugo. Is that in sync with your experience?
I think in Hugo you had some specific areas. I've never seen anything like the devastation I saw today. We drove for miles and miles and miles and saw houses with their roofs off and no shingles. This thing is absolutely huge.
Those of us who love to visit the Keys have fond thoughts of Homestead. It's such a beautiful little town. I can't imagine what it is tonight. Thank you very much. Rob North reporting from Homestead. The storm has left some 1.2 million people without electricity tonight in Florida as well.
President Bush will be in Miami tonight, touring the areas damaged by Andrew. According to White House spokesperson Marlon Fitzwater, Bush has authorized federal disaster assistance for Dade, Broward, and Monroe counties.
I will be declaring today that Florida is a disaster area. There will be 27 agencies of the government then ready to help in any way that the federal government can help.
The president's son, Jeb, lives in one of Miami's hardest hit areas. While the East Coast suffered the brunt of the storm, thousands more were evacuated from Florida's west coast as Hurricane Andrew mowed a path through Florida. Reporter Steve Andrews has just returned from Naples and Collier County in southwest Florida, where you spent the last 20 hours.
It was a wild time down there. It was really one of the more memorable storms I've covered. Ferocious winds kept emergency crews off the roads south of Naples. Evacuations turned condo-lined beaches into empty canyons. Estimates aren't in yet, but it's safe to say southwest Florida suffered millions in damages.
As this vicious storm with a regal name exited Florida, it left the southwest part of the state with whiplash. Andrew crashed through Naples and Collier County on a reckless drive to the Gulf. Nothing standing in its way stood for long. Hours before the storm carved a place in South Florida history, hundreds who hoped to avoid the cutting winds sought shelter in Barron Collier High School. More than 560 evacuees covered up for a long summer's night. Some used sleep to keep their minds off an impending disaster. Others couldn't rest at all.
I just don't want to see some wreckage there. The house is only 3 years.
Seeking shelter proved safe and wise. Hurricane Andrew lost some strength after striking Miami, but in Naples, its ferociousness was frightening. The storm cut off power, cut down traffic lights, and cut apart anything else in its path. Vessels dry docked for safety found no haven. A new home under construction collapsed like a pile of matchsticks. An older home went up like a tinderbox despite drenching rains. In addition to flames, firefighters battled 100-mile-per-hour gusts. Screened lanais folded like decks of cards, leaving their owners at a loss. Metal garage roofs peeled and crumpled like paper. The challenge to shooting this video was to avoid deadly projectiles. For some, including this reporter, the fury of this storm won't ever be forgotten. But for one little evacuee who slept through it all, Hurricane Andrew may never be remembered.
Despite the ferocity and swiftness by which the storm moved, emergency officials in southwest Florida say the evacuations went very, very smoothly. Power outages were numerous throughout southwest Florida, and it could be weeks before all power is fully restored.
Well, it's not that long ago we watched as it took a long time in Charleston, and we, in fact, were sending relief aid up there to try and get their electricity and power back on. Looks like we will be putting our hands out for helpers as well this time.
I'm sure.
All right.
Sure.
Thanks, Steve.
Amid all the information on Hurricane Andrew, a strange twist developed as well. Several Miami women due to have babies in the next 3 weeks reported to Jackson Memorial Hospital. Hospital officials called the women in to wait out the storm in their facility. It seems the low atmospheric pressure from the storm makes some women go into labor early. Some of the 300 women have already given birth. Many camped out on mattresses in hospital hallways, and at least one of the little boys that was born is named Andrew.
Well, that makes sense, doesn't it? When NewsWatch 8 at 6 returns. The day after Andrew, Florida begins to rebuild. NewsWatch 8's Lance Williams is on storm watch.
Bay Area windsurfers make the best of the storm as Andrew sends perfect conditions their way.
And later in sports director Dick Cripple will fill us in on a meeting of Major League Baseball owners that will apparently discuss the employment status of one commissioner, Fay Vincent.
On October 21st, Dave Thomas almost died. Heart surgery saved him that day and gave this caring lawmaker a second chance.
It changed my life. It made me realize you only have a short time on this earth to make a difference.
Dave Thomas is running for Congress to make a difference, to shake things up in Washington.
I want to be your congressman, to change things, to build a positive, hopeful future for my children and yours.
Dave Thomas, for a change.
Your local Ford dealer's greatest hit sales event is blowing away the imports with incredible low prices on 5 of the top 10 bestsellers in America. You'll have a blast driving a new 93 Escort and paying just $156 a month. That's $156 a month for the new 93 Escort loaded with these options and more. And that's bad news for the imports. Your local Ford dealer's greatest hit sales event is blowing away the imports with great quality and low prices.
Hi, how you doing? Good to see you. Hi, ma'am. How you doing? Good to see you there, Beth. Well, hello there. How you doing? How you doing, Beth? How you doing? How you doing? If you treat people nice, they're going to treat you nice. Come on in, lady. Hi.
It's about time for rooms to go. It's the new way to furnish, so easy to do. We put a room together and deliver to you. We make it so easy, you're treated so nice. And rooms to go has the very best price. When it's time for you to decorate, there's one thing you should know. It's about value, it's about time for rooms to go. Rooms to go.
And David Grant is with us now. You know, we've been getting a lot of phone calls this afternoon, David, people wanting to know more about the Keys, and frankly, we have not gotten a lot of information.
Well, I mentioned just earlier, I think that one of the reasons is because the strongest part of the storm is to the right side and the forward side of the storm, whereas the Keys would have been on the lower, side there and on the back side. Now, it doesn't mean they didn't get heavy rain and some strong winds, but they just didn't get the brunt of that storm as it came through there early this morning.
Well, that's great.
Hit the coast.
Maybe we're not getting a lot of reports then because there isn't a lot of damage to report. Let's hope that's the case.
Let's hope that's the case.
Yeah.
That's exactly right. I'd noticed here on a bulletin that sort of switches geographical areas for us. In Harrison County, Alabama, Jackson County, Mississippi, they've started to evacuate tomorrow morning. The orders will go out tomorrow morning for evacuation there. And we do have from Pascagoula, Mississippi to Vermilion Bay, hurricane warnings flying for those folks, and they've just been issued here within the past 45 minutes. This is the current position of the hurricane. It's 150 miles west of Naples. We've lost essentially the effects of it in terms of any extreme effects for our state. Certainly the tide's running a little higher, the surf down in the south part of the Florida. It's continuing to move west about 16 miles per hour. And the highest winds are also 140 miles per hour. It's 25.8 north and 83.9 west if you're plotting that. And if you'd like to plot the track, this is a new track. It just came out just a few moments ago. It takes it to the west, then to the northwest, and then brings it in at Wednesday, 2 a.m., right at the coast south of New Orleans. A critical place for those folks and a critical location because of the delta there of the Mississippi Mississippi River. Well, let's take a look at our own conditions here locally. We have a high of 86 today. That's a current reading. It just has tried to break out, and it's temporarily broken a little bit, just enough to let that heat come through. Low this during the day was 77, 61% humidity. East winds are blowing at 17, and we have 30.00 and a steady barometric pressure reading. Scattered showers are occurring. The main activity is off the coast and down through Naples. We have some scattered showers inland and some off the coast. See a couple little lines down to the southwest. The satellite imagery, which shows several hours now, in fact, the past 24 hours, shows us coming right across the southern part of the state, and you can see, if you watch carefully, that little eye there. You can sort of flickers there, but it's coming on off, and that eye is 150 miles west of Naples at this time. Across the nation, we haven't mentioned very much about it because our attention has been right here at home, but we've had some extremely cold air for this time of the year, dipping into Montana, Wyoming, the northern portions of the plains, and notice the contrast from the mid to lower 50s in those sections to the 80s as we get into St. Louis and southern part of Colorado. And of course, further south, we're even warmer. East to southeast winds, so the winds will come around and change direction tomorrow. Not quite so strong. 15 to 20 knots, subsiding during the day. 5 to 7 foot seas, water temperatures 86 and 87, Gulf and Tampa Bay. Now these are the tides, 2:45 and 5:22, high and low tide in the morning. And then right after noon, 12:08 is a high tide, a low tide at 7:59. Our evening forecast will contain the showers and also the clouds, but start to break up a little bit overnight, a 70 overnight, 82 in the morning, partly cloudy. Then in the afternoon, isolated thunderstorms, very few, a few developing, and a high of 88 degrees. Then we will begin to jump back into the 90s on Wednesday. Stay there for Thursday, Friday, and also on Saturday. Your overnight lows ranging from 70 to start with up to the mid-70s as we get into the latter part of the week.
All right, David, thank you.
Our team coverage of Hurricane Andrew continues.
Up next, more dramatic pictures from the aftermath of Andrew.
When it comes to love in your life, I can tell you everything. But when it comes to love on the tennis court, I don't know the score. But I know someone who does.
The Sports Authority. Your Miter headquarters for soccer shorts, shirts, protective gear, balls, plus a full assortment of cleats for the whole family.
It's the place to go for a very active sports life.
The Sports Authority. You've never seen anything quite like it.
I love my calendar girl. My Ross calendar girl. She gets great prices every day of the year.
Name brand jeans. At department stores, $30. The same jeans at Ross, $15. The only difference is the price. A designer cotton shirt. At fine stores, $32. The same shirt at Ross, $16. The only difference is the price.
My Ross calendar girl. She gets great prices every day of the year.
Shock therapy, severe depression, suicidal tendencies. These aren't the first words you think of about Dick Cavett. But on the next Entertainment Tonight, you'll get the courageous inside story on the private demons he has fought in the public eye.
A tiny part of you that remains sane thinks, is this suicide I'm talking about?
Dick Cavett's courage and ultimate triumph. The inside stories only on Entertainment Tonight.
Tonight at 7:30 on Channel 8.
Take a good look at your Lincoln Mercury dealer's summer savings storm with big savings on Grand Marquis from your local dealer, featuring available dual airbags and anti-lock brakes. Plus, Lincoln Mercury adds in up to $2,400. Lightning strikes twice with big savings from Lincoln Mercury of up to $1,450 on Sable sedan and wagon. Cars unequaled by any other manufacturer in their class for safety. Make your best deal and save even more. So hurry and take a good look at huge savings on Grand Marquis and Sable before the storm passes you by.
I'm Gail Searins. Former Ross Perot volunteers will hold a town meeting this Saturday. Call 254-9392.
NewsWatch 8 at 6 continues now with Bob Hite and Gail Searins.
And now, while Texas, Louisiana, and Alabama brace for a possible visit from Andrew, NewsWatch 8's Lance Williams takes a look back at the storm that had its way with South Florida.
Tears and destruction are Andrew's mean summer legacy. Parts of Dade County looking like a washed-out war zone.
The kids were saying, Mommy, what happened? Why is God doing this to us?
While more than 650,000 people evacuated to Red Cross shelters or motels upstate, those who stayed held on for dear life.
We all just kind of huddled together on the dry spot in our house because we have 2 levels.
Experts are calling it the worst hurricane in more than 6 decades, with at least 8 people dead and 1 million more without water or power. And while most are happy to be alive, others were happy to pillage unprotected stores. Looters ravaged the Cutler Ridge Mall in South Dade until the National Guard moved in. This man was arrested in the parking lot with a machine gun to his head.
Hey, man, get your feet off my neck.
And Governor Lawton Chiles has asked President Bush for federal disaster relief.
In Monroe, Broward, and Dade counties, we'll add other counties to that as necessary.
Federal disaster aid will provide the money to rebuild the area and will probably include medical and military assistance. While the storm didn't include much rain, still there was sporadic flooding. You can see how hard Andrew pushed through. Small planes looking like a massive metal spaghetti. This church nearly toppled to the ground and jets shoved nose down around the runway. Damage is expected to run into the billions of dollars. On the Storm Watch, Lance Williams, NewsWatch 8.
And to handle those damage claims, emergency claims centers will be set up throughout the affected region.
Coming up next, Hurricane Andrew swept through Miami this morning as the Turk swept through Buccaneer Place.
Sports director Dick Crippen has the cut list coming up.
Universal Studios brings Florida residents super new shows at super low prices. Just $24 for adults, $18 for kids. Find Giant Adventure at Fievel's Playland with the wildest kids' water slide anywhere. Rock on with Beetlejuice. See the new Lucy, a tribute. Our all-new Ghostbusters Spooktacular. Join Rocky and Bullwinkle's outrageous new show. Do it all. Only $24 for adults, $18 for kids at Universal Studios, Florida. With 5 times the fun you'll find anywhere.
Hello, I'm Sam Weich, and when Furman Oldsmobile Jeep Eagle asked me to be their spokesperson, I said, hey, I don't even know your company. They said, come on down, check us out. So I did. And it was first-class treatment all the way. They even gave me a car to drive. And I said, I suppose you treat everyone like they're special, right? And they said, yes, Sam, we do. Yeah, right. And then I saw that everybody was treated even better than I was. And then I said, hey, what's the deal? I'm the spokesperson around here. And they said, yes, Sam, but these people are paying for their cars. Oh.
Oh, if only dipping your dog for fleas and ticks was this easy. But it's not. It's a mess, and you know dogs hate it. That's why we created New Defend for Dogs. It takes just seconds to apply, and it kills fleas and ticks for up to 4 weeks. It's revolutionary, but don't take our word for it. Ask your veterinarian. Defend. It works like nothing else.
When you specialize in world-class medicine through teamwork and technology, you learn to listen to the experts.
What would you like to have in a hospital? Doctors, of course.
A lot of nurses to attend the kids. It'd be nice colors.
Be children-friendly, parent-friendly.
To have a support group, a play area.
Make it convenient for the parents to be with the children.
Food should be ice cream. Ice cream. Ice cream.
Designed by experts. Tampa General Hospital Children's Medical Center.
The terrible Turk.
Yeah, we're going to forget about the hurricane for a moment, talking about another clean sweep that's starting to happen. But first of all, there may be one in baseball. If they held a popularity vote for baseball commissioner Fay Vincent in this area, he would certainly get thumbs down. But we're not alone. A lot of baseball owners agree. They give him thumbs down, too. Well, the Major League presidents have announced a joint meeting of baseball owners 1 week from Thursday in Chicago. They will not confirm the purpose, but it is widely rumored that it is to talk over the fate of one Fay Vincent. People in this area cheer. They have felt he has opposed the Tampa Bay area since the start. Meanwhile, they awoke in San Francisco this morning, listening for the sound of horse hooves off in the distance, knowing that George Shinn of Charlotte was about to ride into town. The way he's billed, you've got to figure the guy would probably be on a white stallion. Try a white airplane. That's how he actually rode into town last night. He scheduled meetings with the mayor and prospective investors that are just now getting underway in San Francisco. They'll have a press conference tonight, and then Shinn, who you'll see here in the blue windbreaker, plans to attend the Giants game. Expect more hot air and no real decisions. 3 times Shinn has been invited to our Bay Area table. 3 times no show and no money. As San Franciscans continue to put their hopes on this new group, we put our hopes on the good word of Giants owner Bob Lurie, who has signed an exclusive agreement saying he will listen to no other bids. We started writing him letters last week offering support for his decision and also assuring him Tampa Bay will be a great new home for a team we know he loves. Baseball has said it will not entertain any bids, so the whole thing is in Bob Lurie's hands. Write him in care of San Francisco Giants, Candlestick Park, San Francisco, California, 94124. The Bucs went back to the practice field today, a little lighter on the roster than they were on Saturday. As head coach Sam White walked onto the field in his new adventure hat, Bruce Hill was being informed that he was being released. So he joins Jesse Solomon, who was cut loose Friday. No surprise that the squad worked out on special teams play. One might expect to see a lot more of those drills for that unit before Friday night's game with Cleveland. The bright side Saturday was the defense. So bright, in fact, out of 13 cuts made to the roster today, 8 were from the D. It's obvious the coaches know who they'll count on to continue the momentum from Saturday night. The biggest of the names on the list, Tim Newton, who had just reported last week after holding out. White had warned that those missing camp were missing a lot. The other 7 included one lineman, 2 linebackers, and 4 defensive backs. In almost all cases, they were on the bubble and probably knew it. Among the other cuts, 2 former Gators, tight end Kirk Kirkpatrick and running back Willie McClendon. To bring the roster to 60, one more cut has to happen by the deadline tomorrow at 4 p.m. Which brings us to linebacker holdout Kevin Murphy. He is no longer a holdout. He agreed to terms this afternoon, and he'll hopefully be starting in camp tomorrow. And I have to tell you, happy birthday to Cal Ripken Jr., and if everything goes right, he should get a nice present, a 5-year, $30 million contract. Happy birthday.
And get my boys a new glove, I think. Yeah. That's it. Thanks. Coming up next on this special edition of NewsWatch 8 at 6.
The winds from Hurricane Andrew, wouldn't you know, they actually brought smiles to some Bay Area residents.
The Florida home faces America's toughest bug problem. So ARAB uses the cleanest, most effective methods to rid your home of little crawling things. So bigger crawling things are safer to roam. ARAB, we get the bugs out of Florida living.
Considering a Cherokee or Explorer? Consider this. Just announced $2,000 factory cashback on 2- and 4-door Chevy S10 Blazers. Yes, S10 Blazer with more standard horsepower than Cherokee or Explorer. S10 Blazer comes standard with 4-wheel anti-lock brakes. You won't find that on Ford Explorer. And you pay $500 more for it on Jeep Cherokee. And with $2,000 cashback, S10 Blazers start at just $14,083. $14,083. But you must hurry. This offer ends soon. See one of your Bay Area Chevrolet Geo dealers today.
Hey, look, it's Claire. Clairvoyant. Cool.
Suzette, I know what Ed's thinking. He's thinking about what he'd do if he won Lotto. He's going to take you on a romantic tour of the South Seas.
Give yourself something to think about.
You know something, Ed? I like the way you think.
Play Lotto.
Winn-Dixie discounts greeting cards 40% every day. This $3 card cost me $1.80, and that's good because I buy cards for everyone. Happy birthday, Mom. Happy birthday, Dad. Happy birthday to the world's greatest boss. I just found out that Winn-Dixie discounts all magazines 10% every day. Like this $1.99 People cost me only $1.79, so I can read about anything I want. Politics, Hollywood, people from outer space. Wow, Elvis found gardening in Trailer Park.
When you own a cat or dog in Florida, there are really only 2 ways to get rid of fleas. One is to get rid of your pet. The other is to call ARAB.
Hello? ARAB?
ARAB. We get the bugs out of Florida living.
When your 24-hour News Watch continues tonight at 11, we'll have the very latest on the situation in South Florida as President Bush tours the disaster area. Also, Florida's west coast wasn't spared, as you know. We'll show you how the areas of Naples and Marco Island have weathered the storm. All of that and a lot more tonight at 11.
Well, the Tampa Bay area only felt the fringe effects of Hurricane Andrew, but that was perfect for dozens of windsurfing enthusiasts. Ideal windsurfing conditions were created by the hurricane along the Pinellas Bayway. Steady winds spawned by the storm gave windsurfers across the water and propelled them at speeds of up to 35 miles an hour. Many of the board sailors showed up at dawn. They plan to stay until dark tonight.
It's been the best day we've seen all year. It's the best way to explain it. Hope it happens again next week.
Couldn't ask for anything better with no damage from the hurricane and all this wind and the water on a Monday. Miss work and play all day.
Of course, a nice local gale would have the same effect. That would be not this kind of local gale, but the wind kind.
Easy for them to be smiling. They're not in Miami.
Thanks for being with us. Have a good evening.
Thanks. We'll see you at 11. Hurricane Andrew rips through southern Florida, killing 8 and causing heavy damage. The president on the campaign trail, he has a new job training proposal. And will there be another showdown with Iraq's Saddam Hussein?
This is NBC Nightly News with Tom Brokaw. Tonight, sitting in for Tom is Catherine Couric.
Good evening. Southern Florida tonight is a disaster area. Hurricane Andrew sliced across the state with heavy rains and powerful winds. It left behind widespread destruction, but officials said it could have been much worse. The hurricane hit land just before dawn, just south of Miami, and followed a path that took it near Naples and into the Gulf of Mexico. NBC's Robert Hager tonight is in Miami with the latest. Bob?
And what a storm it was, Katie. It literally roared ashore before dawn here. And when it got here, you didn't need an historian to tell you it was one of the biggest hurricanes in recent decades. The winds pounded Miami and the area south brutally. Some clocked at an incredible 164 miles an hour. Back up, back up, back up. And this is the damage those winds did to some neighborhoods south of Miami.
I wouldn't believe that wind alone could do that. But
in a few areas, 9 out of every 10 structures ruined. As the hurricane moved on, residents below crept out to see how their world had changed. Trees down everywhere, 1.2 million people without power. Some may be blacked out for a week. Vehicles piled atop each other. Boats now in the street. Rooftops deposited on the beach. A shopping center with one side peeled off, its interior exposed like a dollhouse. The track of Miami's mass transit peeled as well, right off its concrete base. And airports closed, the nose of a big passenger jet flattened into the runway. And this is all that's left of neighborhoods with names like Country Walk, Homestead, and others. And these were the shocked recollections of people who lived in these communities.
It's total fear. It's total fear. You could ask my wife. I was crying, especially the safety of our kids, mainly.
Kids were saying, "Mommy, what happened? Why is God doing this to us?" And my husband was holding the roof. The father-in-law was holding the roof. Everything fell out. This is terrible. I wish I'd never go through this again.
The roof came down. I thought the world was coming in. I thought the world was splitting open. I heard the roof come down.
I thought we were going to die. I started saying prayers. We both were. I thought I was going to die. It was incredible. And the storm is incredible.
Late today, President Bush flew in to be taken on a tour of heavily damaged areas. Earlier, the president had declared southern Florida a federal disaster area. There's been trouble, too, some looting. SWAT police have been called out to deal with it. Also, the Florida National Guard. And there were injuries. A mother cradled her small child with a head injury. 8 Americans have been killed in this vicious storm. The hardest hit areas have been sealed off to outsiders now, and a 7 p.m. to 7 a.m. curfew has been declared. Water supplies have been contaminated. There's a need for fresh water, and maybe a need for food in some areas. In other words, there are big problems ahead here, Katie.
Bob Hager, thank you so much. Now the question is, of course, will Hurricane Andrew do to Texas or Louisiana what it did to Florida?
Joining us now is Jerry Gerald, Deputy Director of the National Hurricane Center. Tonight he is in Camp Springs, Maryland. Mr. Gerald, where is Andrew now and where is he headed?
Well, Andrew is out in the Gulf of Mexico, about 470 miles southeast of New Orleans. And it's heading west, but we expect it to turn more toward the northwest. We've put up hurricane warnings now along the coast from Pascagoula, Mississippi, over to Vermilion Bay, Louisiana. So that's the area we're targeting next.
When is it expected to next hit land? What time, what day?
We're thinking tomorrow late in the day, tomorrow in the evening, perhaps.
As late as midnight tomorrow?
No, I think it would probably be earlier than that. Probably around dusk or so.
Is there a chance, Mr. Gerald, that it might increase in strength as it goes across the Gulf of Mexico?
Well, Kate, it's a Category 4 now, and Category 5s are extremely rare. I wouldn't expect much intensification, but this is an extremely dangerous hurricane at any rate.
Are evacuation plans underway for the targeted areas?
Oh, I'm sure they are, and I'm not privy to them right from here, but I'm sure they're underway.
What happens to Andrew after it hits those Gulf Coast states?
Well, presumably it will go over land, and after hurricanes go over land, they very quickly die. But even then, they may cause more destruction from rains that you get. You typically have very heavy rains, and so that may cause floods inland.
8 deaths so far, certainly a tragic result. But are you surprised that the loss of life and property was even greater in Florida so far?
The thing that typically kills the most people is storm surge, and because the storm was fairly small in size, not strength, but size, and moving fairly fast, the storm surge was not as big as we might have expected. That may have been a blessing. Usually wind doesn't kill a lot of people. We'll still probably have some casualties after the hurricane in the cleanup. Things like chainsaws and electrocution from home generators that people are going to hook up. So there's still peril in there, and I wouldn't be surprised that the casualty rate goes up from that as well as goes up just from the non-reporting things that we're not communicating with all the areas down there now.
All right, Jerry Gerald, thanks so much for talking with us this evening. When Nightly News continues, the political wars, tonight job training and the environment. And on America Close Up tonight, medical costs so high some people are shopping around for the best deal.
Presenting the new Civic Del Sol from Honda. It's a sporty, open-top car.
And you can put more.
Of course, they're very difficult to deal with when you not only are forecasting and warning for them, but they visit you at the same time.
Where is it now and how strong?
It's now moved off into the Gulf of Mexico. It's a Category 4 hurricane on our Saffir-Simpson scale. Means up there 140 mile per hour winds and heading toward the Louisiana and Mississippi coastline.
Can you tell if any particular section is more vulnerable than others?
Well, the probability right across that area, we're putting up a hurricane warning here this evening for the Mississippi and Louisiana coast, basically going from Pascagoula, Mississippi over to Vermilion Bay in Louisiana.
Now, with a hurricane over water again, what's its potential to increase its strength?
Well, it's possible. We've got it up there again as a Category 4 hurricane, and quite frankly, we don't do all that good a job of predicting that last 20 miles per hour up or down.
What's the difference between 140 and 165 miles an hour?
We call those Category 5s when they get above 155 miles per hour, but sometimes I think those are sort of artificial things, and an extra 5 miles per hour doesn't make a whole lot of difference.
But as far as you're concerned, this is, for some people in the country, far from over.
Very much so. It certainly needs to be taken serious. I went out to look at some of the problems we had here in Dade County from that Category 4 hurricane, and indeed it does a lot of damage.
Thanks for your time. Bob Sheets at the Hurricane Center to give you a slightly more concrete sense of the power that a Category 4 hurricane has. Imagine what happens when you've seen all those roofs gone. Small homes are destroyed because the air gets under the roof, which then acts as a wing and literally lifts the house right off its foundation. President Bush altered his campaign schedule.
We had one of the finest worst
to Florida. He arrived.
Thank you.
Yes, they need it. Luck and a lot of help.
Still to come on tonight's CBS Evening News, live from Florida. We'll take you across the Gulf to the place the hurricane may hit next, so stay here with us.
It's a very sophisticated system. You're probably better off taking it to the GM dealership.
We haven't got that kind of equipment here. Best bet's the dealership.
Pretty tricky stuff out of our league.
Sorry, try the dealership.
The dealership.
The GM dealership.
The brand. In the West, it's the way a man marks what's his.
January to explain which cuts he would make to pay for the job training program.
And I will project these in more detail as we move into the next budget cycle.
Bush's aides insist that what voters want is not a lot of details like specific budget cuts, but just a promise of good intentions. Under that theory, it is the road to the White House, not to the other place, that is paved with good intentions. John Cochran, NBC News, Ansonia, Connecticut.
Another proposal that's already drawing a lot of fire, Senator Al Gore's plan for the environment. It's so politically risky that Bill Clinton won't endorse key elements, and Republicans are already using it against the Democrats in important states. Here's NBC's Andrea Mitchell.
Al Gore taking his environmental line to a recycling plant in Portland, Maine.
The Clinton-Gore approach is to take post-consumer waste and turn it into job opportunities. The Bush-Quayle approach is to turn it into air pollution and water pollution.
The White House has called Gore an environmental extremist, even though George Bush's own environmental chief disagrees.
No, I don't think he's an environmental extremist.
Al Gore's role as environmental attack dog is not new. While scientists were arguing about the degree of risk the world faces, Gore wrote a bestseller before he joined the ticket, predicting environmental catastrophe unless the country takes radical steps. Stiff energy taxes to be offset by income tax cuts, new regulations to crack down on polluters, a global Marshall Plan to eliminate the internal combustion engine over the next 25 years, policies to stop population growth, not the politically safe bromides usually heard from a senator, to say nothing of a vice presidential candidate. It's been red meat for Republicans.
There are many items in the book that will be very costly to the taxpayer. It will put a lot of people out of work.
He's going to pick up the tab for every environmental problem in the world and put millions and millions of people out of work in Michigan, Ohio, Washington, Oregon.
Short term, your kind of approach would cost jobs in the auto industry and the coal fields.
No, I disagree. There is an emerging market here in the United States and in other countries for more efficient products, higher quality products, products that use less energy and create less pollution.
Gore says fighting pollution should be as important as America's struggle against Nazi Germany or communism. To him, it is nothing less than a religious crusade.
It is, in my opinion, a spiritual crisis which has to do with the relationship between human civilization and the ecological system of the earth.
There are no reliable figures on what Gore's solutions would cost. He says America would lose more jobs by doing nothing. Undoubtedly, Gore helps the ticket in environmentally conscious places like California. But the White House hopes to scare workers in the Rust Belt and energy-producing states by citing a book that calls for new taxes on their industries. Andrea Mitchell, NBC News, Washington.
In economic news today, the dollar dropped sharply again on currency markets here and overseas. The dollar is now at its weakest against the German mark since the end of World War II. On Wall Street, this news drove stocks down sharply today. Trading was moderate.
The makers of Dimetap know it's important for allergy and cold sufferers to trust their medication. Doctors and pharmacists have trusted the Dimetap brand for safe, effective relief for 30 years. You can trust Dimetap Extend tabs for 12 hours of allergy relief. And if you're concerned about drowsiness, Dimetap contains one of the least sedating, non-prescription antihistamines. Trust Dimetap, the #1 doctor-recommended antihistamine decongestant non-prescription formula.
At Red Lobster, it's going, and soon to be gone. Our full pound of shrimp special ends soon. Red Lobster knows you just can't get, enough shrimp. 10 grilled shrimp, 15 butterfly, 11 scampi. A full pound of our biggest and best shrimp. For a limited time, enjoy all this shrimp. There's so much. You may need a doggy bag.
Red Lobster for the seafood lover in you.
It's a very sophisticated system. You're probably better off taking it to the GM dealership.
We haven't got that kind.
Scott Pelley is in New Orleans.
Good evening, Dan. Just a few hours ago, the mayor of New Orleans ordered the evacuation of low-lying areas. This evening, those evacuations are well underway. The people in Bayou country know they have precious little time once the water begins to rise. This Mississippi Delta area is perhaps one of the most vulnerable in all of the Gulf Coast region because many people are living on nothing more than the sediment of the river. Their houses are built on that sediment just a few inches above the waterline. Oil companies today began evacuating thousands of offshore workers and bringing in as many of their offshore oil rigs as possible. We are told that levee control district workers are now filling thousands of sandbags and are busy closing the 111 levee gates that protect the city of New Orleans. It's important to remember that New Orleans is virtually completely below sea level. It's helpful to think of the city as being in the bottom of a soup bowl with the levee system forming the edge around it. The mayor of New Orleans says today that anyone who is able to evacuate now should do so, although that evacuation of the entire city is not yet mandatory. We understand that the governor of Louisiana has put the National Guard on standby. Dan?
Scott, in the late 50s, it was a terrible hurricane with a high death toll in that area of Louisiana, around New Orleans, between New Orleans and the Texas border. Is there any talk around New Orleans that this could be, in its own way, perhaps the worst hurricane this half-century?
It could be, Dan, because the worst hurricane that has ever come ashore here was a Category 3. Andrew, as you noted earlier, is a Category 4. And the people at the River Control District tell us they don't know what'll happen if the flood stage goes above 15 or 20 feet. It could easily breach the levees at that point.
Thanks, Scott. And that's a Category 4 on a 5, scale 5 being the worst. We're going to have more about the hurricane, particularly an update on where it is and where it may be headed a little later on the broadcast. But right now, stay here with us for the CBS Evening News. We're going to take you to Somalia, Africa, and show you what's happening there.
Stone to independence. Some Palestinians suspect that Rabin is easing the occupation to curry American favor, but has no intention of ending it.
From the fact we are with ones that knew about it.
That prices do vary by hospital considerably.
It costs more than twice as much to have a baby at the University of Chicago Hospital than at St. Francis Hospital in Evanston. 4 times as much for a CAT scan at Children's Memorial Hospital than at Bethany Hospital. And a mammogram at Holy Cross Hospital is more than double what Copley Memorial Hospital charges, which should mean employees here are price conscious, just as they're fitness conscious, working out every day on lunch hours. But when it comes to medical costs...
I don't think cost should be a consideration when it comes to the health of my family.
I think most Americans spend far more time shopping for their automobiles than they do for healthcare services.
Which hasn't brought the price of a car down, but being competitive has certainly kept auto prices from increasing at the rate that healthcare costs have been rising. Few doctors are about to follow Dr. Morse's lead and post price lists.
It would change the environment of my waiting room to that of a retail store.
Or perhaps a car dealer's service department. But if services are being offered, Dr. Morse thinks providers, as well as patients, should be more price conscious.
We should have an enlightened cost awareness in the medical profession, and it isn't there. It really isn't there.
Consumers could change that, he believes. All it would take is asking doctors what they would ask mechanics. How much? Fred Briggs, NBC News, Boston.
At its annual meeting in June, the American Medical Association passed a resolution encouraging doctors to post prices for their services.
Before we
march. restaurants.
I'll drink tobacco. Say 60% of their...
To get rid of her gray,
For other news, let's go to New York and Paula's on. Paula?
Thanks a lot, Dan. On a college campus in Montreal today, a professor went on a shooting rampage, killing 2 people and wounding 3 before he was captured by police. It happened at Concordia University. A witness said the professor was walking across the grounds like a robot, firing a pistol. He reportedly was angry because the university had denied his tenure. A U.S. military relief operation is up and running in Kenya, bringing food to starving refugees from the civil war in neighboring Somalia. Later this week, the U.S. airlift will go into Somalia itself. CBS News correspondent Dr. Bob Arnott is there.
Yeah, he's cold. He's dead.
A young orphan dies in the village of Adoa. This is the face of death seen.
Long time than all, but they don't know what I'm doing. So.
Pain reliever, plus a gentle ingredient to help him sleep, which is good news for Ed, but not for the trout population of Pinecrest Lake. Tylenol PM. It puts arthritis pain to rest.
Whenever you pick up a little something, why not charge it on the Discover card and earn a cashback bonus? After all, money doesn't grow on trees. Or does it? It pays to Discover.
Oh, great. Just what my stomach needs. Here comes my obnoxious boss.
Hi, Daddy.
Oh, boy.
Better make it Malox, because extra strength Malox Plus neutralizes more acid than Mylanta. So you better make it Malox.
This is the time to use Ace Paint. Hey, Ace knows what it takes to make great paint, because Ace makes its own. Ace Paint, top quality in every drop, guaranteed.
Ace 7-Star, their best interior flat latex, is just $10.97 a gallon.
Another reason Ace is the place for you.
Here's a quick check now of some of today's other news. The official start of winter is 4 months away, but tell that to parts of Colorado, up to 4 inches of snow in some areas. Overseas, Bosnian government buildings were aflame after more attacks by Serbian mortars. Bosnian troops are trying to break the siege before peace talks begin on Wednesday. Mideast peace talks resumed with a Syrian demand for land and an Israeli gesture of compromise. Cancellation of deportation orders against 11 Palestinians. No compromise tonight from Saddam Hussein. He vowed that Iraq would not yield to Western pressure. At issue is a plan by the United States and its allies to protect Shiites in an area south of Baghdad, a plan that could fragment Iraq. NBC's Dennis Murphy tonight is in Baghdad.
These are some of the people Americans and their allies would be protecting. The Shiite fishermen of the southern marshes, enemies of Saddam, leaderless outcasts in a country where they are 55% of the population. The U.S., France, and Britain propose to shoot down any Iraqi planes that fly over the Shiites. The Iraqi government claims the marshlands hide bands of Shiite rebels bent on overthrowing Saddam under orders from his old enemy, Iran. The Shiites, in turn, accuse the Iraqis of genocide, aerial strafing, napalming villages, charges that so far cannot be reliably proven or refuted. So once again, Saddam is on the defensive, telling Iraqis they will emerge victorious despite the threat, a threat that would slice Iraq into 3 distinct parts. To the north, Iraqi Kurdistan. The Kurds have set up their own parliament protected from Saddam by allied planes and ground troops. To the south, the Shiites would be shielded from the air. That leaves a humiliated Saddam the leader of only a middle band of Sunni Muslim Iraq, Greater Baghdad. That's the neat theory. The potentially messy reality down south is a large Iraqi ground force and a rebuilt air defense system.
There are still a lot of missile launchers available and even more anti-aircraft guns which were quite successful during Desert Storm.
What will the Allies do if Saddam ignores the planes overhead and crushes the Shiites with tanks and artillery? And if the safe haven approach is successful, fundamentalists could establish an autonomous Islamic state with ties to Iran.
The Shias, or Shia majority people in the south of Iraq, will set up Islamic Republic, which will get together with Iran, which means basically Iran will extend its boundaries to Kuwait and Saudi Arabia. Now, does Mr. Bush want that?
Iraqi Deputy Prime Minister Tariq Aziz was in Yemen winning support for Iraqi opposition. Only Kuwait of the Arab states supports the allies on the record. A year and a half ago, when Saddam's gunships put down the Shiite rebellion, the U.S. chose not to intervene. The fear then was that a fragmented Iraq would create a power vacuum in the Gulf that Iran would walk right into. That risk remains, but U.S. policy has apparently shifted 180 degrees. Dennis Murphy, NBC News, Baghdad.
And when Nightly News continues, former LA gang members fighting fires.
And didn't you write the families and apologize to them or explain what happened? Mike Almanza believes the Marine desire to downplay the incident is why he has not received a retirement ceremony, despite 18 years in the Corps.
You know, you're standing out there in all these parades and ceremonies, and you're saying, dang, one day I'll have my day in the sun.
And you never got it?
And I never got it.
General Boomer acknowledges that was a mistake.
That's not the way we treat Marines. That's not what we believe. That's not what we teach. That's not what we talk about.
Marine Corps officials now promise they will get in touch with the victims. But the men who were caught in that deadly accident wonder why it has taken a year and a half for Marine loyalty to extend to them. James Walker, ABC News, Port Huron, Michigan.
We'll be back in just a moment.
Before we should crawl more, short of kissing Pat Buchanan standard.
Still, Hollywood has the jitters. The studio has canceled the press tour for Allen's next movie, fearing questions about the scandal would overshadow the film. But seizing on the attention, the studio announced today that the movie would be released next month, a week earlier than expected. Cindy Kennard, CBS News, Hollywood.
And that's it from New York for tonight. Dan Rather will be back in a moment from Florida.
Draw from the facts. There's a way to maintain...
Domino's better than ever pizza with more cheese, tender, tastier crust, and lots of pepperoni.
Nobody knows like Domino's.
Domino's Pepperoni Passion. Deal starting at $6.99.
Now you don't need a prescription to... Way to enjoy Kellogg's All Brand. All Brand muffins. All that fiber. All that great taste.
I drink B8 because...
Hey, I think it's good for me. It makes me peppy.
You got your vitamin A, your vitamin C. I like it because it has those beta-carotenes in it.
What's that word?
Beta-carotenes.
Pardon?
Beta what? You know, beta-carotene.
Muy sabroso.
Call me crazy, but I think it's delicious.
35 calories.
Really? 35? Yes. It's a kick. I love you. B8?
B8 keeps me thin.
It's zippy, kind of.
Tonight.
Just before we leave, an update on Hurricane Andrew. It struck southern Florida earlier this morning. It's just south of Miami with winds of about 140 miles an hour. 8 people were killed, but many people may have been spared because it was south of Miami. The winds were very powerful, as you can see, powerful enough, ripped trees from the ground, ripped roofs and walls from thousands of businesses and homes. About 1 million people had been told to evacuate the area. 3/4 of them listened. At the moment, Hurricane Andrew is in the Gulf of Mexico. People in Louisiana and Mississippi have been warned that the hurricane is coming in their direction, and they should prepare because the hurricane is now out over water again. It is gaining strength and moisture from being over water. 1 million people in Florida without electricity tonight. Many water supplies have been contaminated. I'd like to by salt water, however long that may last, and President Bush is down there tonight having declared it a disaster area. But these scenes repeated all across the 100-mile wide peninsula from the east coast to the west. A force 4 hurricane with winds of 145 to 160 miles an hour at the gust. It's been a very bad day for some people in some parts of the country. I'm Peter Jennings in New York. Good night.
What anticipates is the storm is going to turn to the northwest. If that turn takes place in the next couple of hours, then it could be Alabama or Mississippi. If the turn is delayed, then we're talking about Louisiana and maybe even the upper Texas coast, so we're watching it very carefully.
And its top sustained winds at the moment are?
140 miles an hour, and it could gather some more strength.
Whew. Thanks, Dr. Neil Frank. Our thanks to also the friends at AT&T, American Telephone and Telegraph, who've been so terrific to us and for us today. Dan Rather, reporting live from Florida for the CBS Evening News. For news about the hurricane, stay tuned to this CBS station. I'll see you tomorrow. Good night.
Stampede, the
The defending AFC champion Buffalo Bills invade Kansas City to challenge the Chiefs in a prime
$5 or more to act
on ABC Sports.
Meet the damsel of death in her first network interview, only on Dateline NBC, Tuesday.
This week on Today, America's most notorious female serial killer.
And the latest in the Woody Mia custody battle, plus the hot country sounds of Garth Brooks.
That's this week on Today.
Pontiac Grand.
It was an accident.
Call 990.
All right, stop yelling. It's only a little bit of water. I'll mop it up.